Kakadosh, Erev Tov, I'm just going to share with you an incredible shiur that we started speaking about, which has to do with what is the reason why Yosef HaTzadik did not send a letter to his father. So we were going to start with the Orach Chaim HaKadosh that we already started. This is Orach Chaim HaKadosh Parashat Vayigash, Sefer Bereshit Perek Memhei Pasuk Vav. That he comes and he says, Ra'iti latet lev. I wanted to place. Why is it to do with Yosef HaTzadik that he didn't care about the suffering of his father for so many years? It's true that when he was an Eved, obviously he wasn't going to send anything, right? But after he was already Ola Ligdula, remember the first year he was in House of Potiphar. The next 12 years he was in jail. 13 years, nothing. But afterwards, why in the world is he not going to do that? So he says, why didn't he write and he get it? Yosef Tzaddik knew that for sure Yaakov Avinu is suffering. And he's suffering so much. For sure he's doing that. So why didn't he send it to him? And even more when it was going to be during the time of the famine. That a lot of people were going back and forth. He didn't even care. He didn't even pay attention. Yeah, what does that mean? So here it says, right? He comes and he says here, if Yosef himself asked from the Sara Mashkim to remember him, to take him out of jail, right? He says, but it wasn't actually achayat davar lelo hu'il until Hashem comes in. So look at Orach Chaim HaKadosh, and that's Lashon HaKadosh v'Kohelet. Ki mibet ha'asurim yatsa limloch. Okay, fine. So the question is, right? Why didn't he do that? Why? Right? And who gives them the permission not to do it immediately? Right? Who's the one that's not coming and he should have done it immediately? So he comes and he says, right, like this. But then once the brothers come, now he's being Mitzayir b'yadayim. Meaning the other one, the Sheve al Taseh. Meaning, I didn't write a letter, but I didn't do anything proactive to make him suffer. Now when the brothers come down and now I start this whole drama, now I'm coming with my hands and I'm doing it, I'm making him suffer. So that's even more. Ask the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. 1 second. Vehen emet, ki lema shenitkalgel binyanim shegazar o gozer. So that which we actually mentioned, to do with that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a gezerah, Rabbi mem she'ayu tzrichim liot ken. There's a lot of things that means there's a lot of things of all the things that made a gezerah to do that happened to Yaakov Avinu and to his children. There's a lot of different pratim. Hechal, the Shalom Yaakov 22 shana shelo shimesh aviv. So number one, we already know that there had to be a midah keren midah. What was the midah keren midah? Yaakov Avinu didn't serve his father, his parents for 22 years. Midah keren midah. Yosef was not going to be with his father for 22 years. So he comes and he says, "Uchmochen hu b'tzad 22 shana." So the same thing, you have to be right, just like the Gemara Masechet Megillah, the Zayin Amud Aleph says, Yosef shepiresh me'aviv. Yosef comes and he separates from his father for so many years. That's exactly what happened. Then he says, "V'gam lemispar redu." Right? The exact same thing happens to the mispar, to the number of redu. You remember yesterday we went and we said that Yaakov Avinu comes and he tells his children, what does he tell them? Redu shama. What is redu? To 10. What does Yosef come and he tells the brothers? What does Yosef tell the brothers? Reda al tamod. Why does it say reda? Because now it's 209. Okay. Resh Daled Hey instead of Resh Daled Vav. 1 year already passed by this. So therefore now it's not going to be any more 210. It's actually going to be 209 years. Right? That's what he actually, I don't remember who it was that said that. We wrote that yesterday. Right? 2 days ago. It was actually a very beautiful pshat. But he says, if that was the thing, he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he tells them to be Mitzrayim. V'gam lered Yaakov bechavod gadol. And also the Yaakov Avinu is going to come with a lot of kavod. If he would have come down beforehand, he wouldn't have come with so much kavod. And there's other things as well over here, he says. There's other things. He says, right? That means basically he says that it's only now, meaning like this. If he would have come and he would have told Yaakov beforehand that he's in Mitzrayim or he sent a letter, so Yaakov Avinu wouldn't come down with such a big honor and respect, and it wouldn't have been the same thing. ונראה כי טעמו של יוסף טעם לשבח, והוא כי מעת ירידתו למצרים עד עת דברו, יתברך ויוציאו מבית הסורים למלוך, אין סיפק בידו להודיע לאביו. He comes and he says, it could be that he didn't have the time. He didn't have the time. Here he comes and he says, right? He didn't have the time to do it. Yeah, so he comes and he says, right? So vafilu sheyunach sheyatzik biyado. Now, even if you're going to tell me now that maybe he did have the time, he comes and he says, chasha nafsho sheyedu achav badavar. Right? He comes and he didn't want the brothers should find out. Yeah. So basically, that's what he says over here. Right? Shivada lahem sheshalach lo odia v'hu b'vet asurim. Right? Ultzad boshtam uklimatam me'aviem. Because he didn't want them to be embarrassed from their fathers. They would come and they would basically, they would just, that's it. Even without, it's such an embarrassment from their father. It could be that now the father's going to come, he's going to curse them. You guys went and he sold Yosef. He would come and so therefore he didn't want to tell them. Which means now he's coming, he's actually saying something incredible. He's coming and he's saying that right now, the reason why he didn't want to do it is he didn't want that really meant that his father would come and actually curse the brothers if he would find out what happened. Now, 1 second. This is only 1 second. This is only before when he's still in the jail. Now, after he already comes out of jail and he became a Sar Gadol, right? And now the Chashash Harishon already left. What was the Chashash Harishon? He comes and he says, right? Biado, right? What's going on? So he comes and he says, right? Now he has the time. Beforehand, he was a slave. He doesn't have the time to do everything. But now he does have the time. So what happened? So he says, after he's already out of jail, מוטב שיפיל אדם לכבשן האש, לבין פני חברו. וחש על כבוד האחים, לביישם לפני יעקב. You know why he didn't do anything? He didn't want to embarrass the brothers. He didn't want to come and embarrass the brothers, and therefore, if he's going to come, and he's going to tell you what's going to happen.
He did it anyway. Did
right? No. No. It's going to be a big difference. He comes and he says, right? The Ramban says that Yosef mitzad musaro atov lo rצה להגיד לו, כדי שלא יקפיד עליהם. However, though, 1 second. First of all, right? He comes and he says, right? He comes and he says like this. בדעת זקנים בעלי התוספות says, משמע שלא יהיה יוסף רגיל אצל יעקב, just like it says, ושמעתי מפי הרב שמואל התם לפי שהיה ירא שישאל לו עניין. He was afraid that he was going to ask him. And then what would happen was, ויקללם יעקב, ונמצא מחריב את העולם כולו, שרחל אמו שקילל שלו מדעת, right? He actually died, and he מתה בדרך אפרת. So therefore he comes and he says, אם יקללם מדעת, לא כל שכן. So therefore he comes and he says, so that's why he wanted to be so careful that he didn't want that Yaakov Avinu would come and curse the brothers for what they did. He preferred that he's not going to say anything. And therefore he was chash al kavod, right? Achim levaysham lifnei Yaakov. V'yitzchak, v'chol zere Yaakov. V'saval, right? So he comes and he says, v'yitzchak, and also zere Yaakov, v'saval shisha v'aviv b'tzarom levaysham, meaning he preferred to leave that his father is going to suffer instead of embarrassing them, right? So here he comes and he says, Pirush v'saval be'atzmo davar zeh, meaning the opposite. He was suffering, the fact that his father was suffering. Ve'od she'af ki achar she'ala legdula, חשב יוסף בליבם, בליבם מחוש ההסתרה ממנו, והתייעצו עליו לעוקרו מהעולם. וכמו כן תמצא שאמרו חז"ל שרצו לעוקרו אפילו בימי גדולתו. ובא גבריאל ופזרן. So that means basically it's a Midrash Tanchuma. The Midrash Tanchuma actually says that they wanted to kill him even afterwards, when he was already a Gdula. But just Gabriel came and he split them up around the house. So therefore they weren't able to actually come and do something. The brothers, yes. So he comes and he says, but it says in the Midrash Rabbah, שירדו אחריו וניסה לפתותו. They came down to redeem him. ישתנה הדבר אם יפדו הם, שאז יכיר באחוותם, וזולת זה עברה שמרה נצח, ולא ישכח את אשר עשו לו, ויקדמו הם להורגו, הנך רואה כי אם היה מודיע מקודם ליעקב כי הוא חי, היו מתאזרים ובאים עומדים את עוד העולם. Which means like this. If they come down to redeem him, now they showed him, we're your brother. We came, we redeemed you. But if they come down, right, or even without coming down, if he comes and he shows, I'm Yosef, look what happened to me, I'm heir upon the world, they're going to want to come and kill him. Because they're not going to show now the achva anymore. The opposite. I don't need you. I became the king, I became everything without you guys. There's nothing there. So therefore comes the Or HaChaim HaKadosh and he says, that's why he wanted to make sure that he's not going to tell them anything. So even after they come to him, not to them and not to the father. He's still in the same sakana, right, as we already mentioned. He still has. Why? They could still come and they could still try to kill him. Until he comes, he gave them to eat, he gave them to drink, and he gave them money. Right? That he gave them the money. So now what happens? He comes and he says, meaning, once he comes and he does all these things, he's actually showing them subconsciously that he's with them. He's 100% with them. He's giving them money, he's giving them to eat, to drink. And it comes out that it comes from Hashem. He's not hating them. Now there's not going to be any more than embarrassment. Listen, this is what Hashem wanted. And then he comes and he tells them, and even with that, Hashem still needed to send the malach to save them. Just like the Gemara said, the Midrash Tanchuma says, he didn't know. He knows that the malach was going to save him. And therefore you can actually be mashim at Yosef. So here, by the way, you have to remember there's actually two different sfarim here on the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. There's the sefer called Meoreh Or, that was like the Rashi that I was adding in the middle. And then there's another sefer called Meoreh HaChaim. So the Meoreh HaChaim, he comes and he says, Lichora kasher, hala kasher yatsa Yosef min bet asurim, lo ya Yitzchak chai. When Yosef came out of jail, Yitzchak wasn't alive anymore. Why? Because when he already went out of jail, it already started the Shnat HaSova. Yaakov Avinu kasher ala Mitzrayim lachash, right, Sheva Shnot HaSova, Shnatayim Shalav, he was already 130 years old, just like he told Yosef, Paro. So if so, when Yosef came out of jail, Yaakov was 121. So Yitzchak Avinu already passed away when he was 120. So therefore, what does that mean? Because then it says, obviously, when he was born, so therefore, obviously, there's something wrong over here. So he comes and he says, so it comes out that maybe he says when Yosef was sold, Yitzchak was still alive. Okay, that's number one. Number two also, the Tanchuma actually says, Kevan shi kiruhu bikshu lehorgo. The Midrash Tanchuma brings down, right? You want to bring it? Midrash Tanchuma. He comes and he says, he says, the Midrash Tanchuma says, right? He comes and he says, Yarad malach upizram be'arba pinot habayit. The malach came down and spread them out. And באותה שעה צווח יהודה בקול גדול ונפלו כל החומות שבמצב והפילו כל החיות. They wanted to come, they wanted to kill him. Right? And then this is on this week's parasha, by the way. On this week's parasha, this is the Midrash Tanchuma. So therefore, until finally he went and he said, that's why Shah got to the end. That's why, if you remember, we actually said that when Yosef went and he said, Otziu cholish me'alai, he put himself in danger that they were going to kill him. Because they could have killed him. Very good. Right? He could have actually killed him. So now here he comes and it says, in the Bereshit Rabbah also says, when it says, Vayomru 12 achim anachnu, amar lehun ve'anhu. So where are they? Zavinyate. He went and he told them, how much did you sell him for? They told him 5 slain. They went and they told him 5 slain. Amar lehun ve'in. Huh? No, it was 20 kesef, which is 5 slain. So amar lehun, right? Amar lehun ve'ina va'amar lechum b'nei nashi avuni 5 slain v'nei yevyater yechol natun avdin. Right? Amrin le'in, yes. Ve'im amar lechum bar nashi avim bekiflaya ve'ana yahiv lechon lechum. Right? Aten avdin. Lehen. What are you doing? What does that mean? Basically, what happened was that there was a du-siach between the brothers. He went and he told them, how much did you guys sell him for? 5 slain. Right? 5 slain. Okay. So he went and he said, 5 slain. So he says, right now, if I would come, actually, you would actually come and you would pay for it. He said, yeah. Even double? He said, yes. Right? He says, okay. And what happens if somebody comes and he says, even for 1,000? He says, we would also do it. And what happens? He says, no, we're not going. He says, because of that, we came down to Egypt. Either to kill or to be killed. And because of that, Yosef comes and he says, you guys just said, you guys want to either kill someone or be killed, which means you guys are managlim. That's what you guys are doing. So that's what Rashi says, Vayiridu achei Yosef velo katav b'nei Yaakov. מלמד שהיו מתחרטים ממכירתו ונתנו ליבם לנהג עמו באחווה ולפתותו בכל מקום ובכל ממון שיפסקו עליהם. מדרש רבה. So Midrash Rabbah actually brings down. So it's actually technically even a stira in the Midrashim. The Midrash Rabbah mitzad echad is coming and telling you that they were willing to come down and to pay all the money in the world to redeem him. Mitzad sheni, the Midrash Tanchuma comes and he says, V'yigash alav Yehuda, Yehuda was going to take down the entire city. Yehuda was going to kill everybody. So the truth is, if you actually remember, we did speak about this 2 years ago, and we brought down the Seder HaDorot. But the Seder HaDorot says that Menashe came to Yehuda, and he put I think it was like a hair. He did something with a hair of his, and then he basically calmed down. He wasn't able to do anything. And then he went and he said, "This comes from the father of our house," meaning that he said there's something wrong here, because only somebody that comes from our father's house knows how to do that. They cannot come, and it doesn't make sense, because it says that they went and they said, "What are you guys doing over there?" They did it. That's why everyone heard about it. Fine, but Yosef HaTzadik said, "I can't be somech alanes." So therefore, if you can't be somech alanes, so therefore I can't just come and do whatever I want with them. But that was the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. Okay. So now he comes and he says, "If you don't take this, yeah," he comes and he says, right? The Orach Chaim HaKadosh comes and he says, Yosef HaTzadik nimna miyodia Yaakov avinu chashash leval yiposhesh me'achiv. That was the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. He didn't want them to be embarrassed. Now he comes and he says in Parashat Vayigash, right? He was very, very careful with the kavod of his brothers. In Parashat Vayigash, it says also that he went and he started moving everybody. He started displacing everybody. He tells everybody, go from the north of Gaza, go to the south. From the south, go to the north. Go there. He started moving everybody around. Why is he doing that? Rashi says, Yosef me'ir le'ir lezikaron she'en lahem od chelek ba'aretz. He wanted to remind everybody, nobody has a chelek here in the land. Nobody has anything. To tell you the shevach of Yosef, שנתכוון להסיר חרפה מלאכיו, שלא יקראו אותם גולים. Meaning like this, imagine right now you come to a place and everybody has properties. Everybody has properties. And now if everybody comes and everyone has properties, what happens? They come and the brothers are the only ones that don't have properties. How do they feel? The brothers are going to feel terrible. They're going to feel what's going on over here. We're the only, so they're golim. These are the, they're not even citizens. So what happened? He purposely moved everybody around to make sure that everybody is considered, they're all guests. Nobody has a piece of land here. So they're moving everybody. Yeah, that's what Rashi says. Then it comes and it says, right? What does Rashi say? Why? He didn't want to embarrass the brothers. So he told everybody to go outside. The Midrash, right? He comes and he says, the Midrash Tanchuma says, Mutav she'areg velo evayesh. It's better that I should be embarrassed. It's better that I should kill them. I should be killed, but I'm not going to embarrass them. Right? Fine. Right? Ma? Yeah? He says over here like this. Yeah? It says, velo yechol Yosef litapek. It says, lo vayitapek. Yeah? Doesn't say that. Litapek. So he says now like this. Yeah? But the Ramban in Parashat Vayigash, yeah, he comes and he says, "V'atam be'otza'ah she'otziam misham shelo yishmiu b'zkero memechida, tilem gam elav lemichshol she'omru avdei paro mitzrayim elu anshe bogdot." So he says, you know what the Ramban says? Why? Right? They came and they said that. He comes and he says, but they didn't want that they should say, look at these people. They came and they sold their own brother. So therefore, he didn't do that. The Dat Zekirim Bala Tosafot comes and it says, Gishuna elai vayigashu, the Midrash, lefi shama lemala hotziu chol ish me'alai, yomru anashim ra'im me'od. They didn't want that. So therefore, and then the next one it says, Davar acher, shelo yitvaishu mimenu. They didn't want him to be embarrassed. V'shelo yagid la'aviv, meaning, he actually told them to come closer because he didn't want Binyamin to hear. You remember that was what we said on Monday night also. He didn't want Binyamin to hear that they went and they sold them. So he told them all come closer. And so he freed Binyamin. He went and he separated from Binyamin. He told Binyamin, stay back. He brought them all closer. And then he says, Binyamin didn't know. Remember we said that already. So Orach Chaim HaKadosh comes and he says, V'yitvada Yosef, Irush. It doesn't matter. Mishvil itvaduto elechav. He comes and v'lo ratza lezazel be'echav. Right? The Orach Chaim HaKadosh also same thing. He didn't want to be mezalzel to them. And therefore that's why he did everything over here. So he went and he said, this is what he did because of the embarrassment of the brothers. Okay? תירוצו של החיים הקדוש, שיוסף נמנע מלהודיע לאביו שהוא חי כדי לא לבייש את אחיו, צריך עיון. Why? אמנם בנודע לעצמו, מוטב לאדם שיפול כבשן, ולא יבין פני חברו ברבים. אך מי הטיל לו לצייר את אביו? The first question, right? What was the question? Yeah, the question is, what exactly? Yeah, listen carefully. Yeah, he comes and he says like this. He says, what exactly gives him the heter to make his father suffer?
Give me the heter
to make his father suffer. Until now, he could throw himself into the fiery furnace. Yes, don't embarrass anybody. Throw yourself in the fiery furnace. But how are you coming and you're causing your father to suffer? That's the question. How are you causing your father to suffer? So he comes and he says like this. L'chaim HaKadosh says, "Vayomer Yisrael el Yosef amut apam acharei reoti et panecha ki odecha chai." Says Baruch Shimon Schneerson, the Birkat Shimon. He says, "Ve'im ki haya makom lomar derech derak ve'anogea lo le'atzmo ne'emon mutav." He says, "Aval al tzar aviv." Whoever told you? Meaning like this, right? One more time. Why in the world you want to come and you want to embarrass yourself, or you want to throw yourself into a fiery furnace in order not to embarrass your brothers? Kol hakavod. But can I do that al cheshboncha? Asur.
No, asur.
So what's he doing? He wants to be machmir al atzmo, kol hakavod, but not on somebody else. You know how many people they come?
Never you do something on somebody else's expense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, right. In the meantime, they step on somebody else,
and they think about themselves only. ואולי יש לומר עוד, אם היה מודיע יוסף לפני שהייתה נגלת הכוונה העליונה, שציווה מעשה זו, והייתה בושה לאחיו, ממילא הרי היה גדול אצל יעקב מבניו, שעשו מעשה כזו. So he comes and he says, you know what, maybe you could actually answer that really באמת, if Yosef would have actually told him, so then it would have actually been worse for Yaakov. Meaning, because then, this is what the action that my own children do. So maybe it would have been actually been worse for Yaakov Avinu.
Yaakov
right?
didn't think of that?
No,
He never thought that maybe the brothers
Told him? No. But Yaakov was going to suspect.
They came back, the 10 came back, and Yosef is not him.
He sold? Never. He comes and he says, כוונת דברי יעקב היא כי גם שנתבשר כי עודנו חי. Right? He says, זוהי לדעת שישנו במציאות, אבל עדיין ליבו דווי עליו ליצוד היותו בין אומות השפל, עבד, מושלים, ומודד מציקתו. So he says, עוד לצד יום מובדל ממנו, ונתנו תוך הקליפות, ותור מצרים, תרוב תורת יוסף, חיירה החלטו, כי הצדיקים יותר יכבסו בהדר הבן, בהיותו בן מביש. I don't know if you guys just understood what I just said. One more time, right? I'm going to read to you the words. כי הצדיקים, right? We're talking about tzadikim. They prefer beheder haben, that the child is not there, then that he should be a bad child.
It's obvious, man.
Yeah? And that's why he says, Amar Avuna, it actually had Ruach HaKodesh, when it says Chayara Chalatu, it's the wife of Potiphar. And that's what Rashi also says over there. So Yaakov Avinu actually was suspecting about Lachush al Tzidkot Beno, after he already had this Lashon Ruach HaKodesh. But meaning like this, meaning if you're going to come and you're going to ask a person, what do you prefer? That the child dies or that he has a bad child? He would actually prefer answering that the child should die. I'm reading to you the Or HaChaim. 1 second. The tzadikim yoter yichpetzu beheder haben yoter ben mevish. Magam Yaakov, right? And also by Yaakov Avinu. He comes and he says, Yaakov HaTzadik, asher כן לא הייתה שמחתו שלמה מספק זה, until וירא אליו. And then he saw his face. Because once he saw his face, then he realized that Roshem HaPanim, exactly who he was dealing with. Meaning that until he didn't actually go down and he didn't see the face of Yaakov, he still wasn't appeased. Now that he goes down and he sees Yaakov Avinu's face, Yosef HaTzadik's face, now he's going to come and he's going to be calmed down. Right? That's what he's actually going to come and he's going to say. So now we're going to speak about, there's a sefer called Kol HaKatuv L'Chaim. The Sefer Kol HaKatuv L'Chaim comes and he says the following. He says like this. He says, Uv'tchelet Mordechai L'Marsham. So the Tchelet Mordechai is Rav Shalom Shodron. Yeah, and he says, Al pi divrei Rabbeinu, ma shedarshu Chazal vayar et agalot. We see at the end of this week's parasha, it says that he saw the agalot, Shalach Yosef, v'techi ruach Yaakov avihem. Rashi says, Siman masar lo. What was the last thing that they were learning? Why were they dafka learning this siman? I spoke about this last night, if you remember, in the Shabbat Berachot. And he comes and he explains, Al pi Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim says, B'divrei HaSifri al HaPasuk b'Parashat Eglah Rufa, שאומרים הזקנים כפר לעמך ישראל ודרשין על המתים של עוון שפיכות דמים גם האבות נענשים. Meaning, if somebody comes and they kill, even the avot are punished as well. So the Pri Megadim comes and he says, גם עוון מלבין פניך ולא ברבים נחשב כשפיכות דמים. If you embarrass someone, that's also שפיכות דמים. And it's אביזרעו דשפיכות דמים. ולכן מוטב שישליך את עצמו לכבשן האש ובכלל ג' דברים שיהרג ואל יעבור, ועל עוון מלבין פני חברו ברבים, יש שפיכות דמים. So even the avot נענשים. So therefore, when Yosef comes and he tells his father that he's alive, חשש יוסף שיעקב לא ירצה להאמין שהוא חי, כיוון שעברו כל כך הרבה שנים ולא הודיע לו זאת. Meaning, one second, why didn't you tell me? You were alive so many years, you didn't tell me what? His father's not going to believe him. Therefore, Yosef sent him the Parashat Eglah Rufa, lirmoz lo, that the reason why I didn't send you a letter was שלא רצה לבייש את מי שעשה זאת. He didn't want to embarrass the people that did this. He was giving his father a hint about what happened, and therefore he doesn't want to speak about it. Okay, uchmo. Just like he comes and he says uchmo, right? He comes and he says uchmo שאנו רואים בפרשת עגלה ערופה, שגם האבות נענשים על עוון מלבין פני חברו ברבים. ובזה מפרש את מה דהית במדרש, מפרש דברי יעקב, עוד יוסף בני חי, שבכל הצרות שעברו על אבותינו חי ועומד בציקו. What? He had so many צרות, and he's still alive? Now, ולכל הקשה, how does he know that he was still a tzaddik? So accordingly, he understood. The fact that he sent him Parashat Eglah Rufa, he understood that he had an incredible nisayon להלבין פני אחיו. And he saval kol hatzarot. He had an incredible nisayon, meaning like this. It comes out that according to Shalom Shodron, it comes out something incredible. Yosef HaTzadik hinted, right? Yosef HaTzadik hinted to Yaakov that my brother sold me. Why? Yaakov was not going to believe him. And if Yaakov was not going to believe them, right? So then why in the world, why was he going to believe him? You know why? He was going to say, how could it be that you're alive and you didn't write me anything? Yosef sent him the Eglah Rufa, and by sending him the Eglah Rufa, he told him, you know why I didn't write you a letter? Because I'm not allowed to embarrass the people that did what they did, and that's the reason why I'm here.
So what? So he told him they did it?
And therefore he went and he said, now why am I not allowed to embarrass them? He says, because if you remember, that was the entire concept of Eglah Rufa. Eglah Rufa, it says, Kaper la'amecha Yisrael, you have to give to a kapara. Who's the kapara for? Even the parents. Right? Why is it even the parents?
Then how
He comes and he says,
situation and end up like that?
He says, why exactly the parents? He comes and he says, because by the avon of shfichut damim, the parents are also punished.
Yeah.
So therefore, just like we come and we have, that there's going to be certain averot, which are yareg val yavor, malbin pene chavero is the exact same thing as well. Yeah? Is the exact same thing as well. Okay? So therefore, it's just very, very important, this concept. Okay? Fine. Now he comes and he says, so therefore, what happened? Shtikol Musa. No, so you understand what happened? Something incredible. Meaning, according to the Shalom Shodron, it comes out that really be'emet, Yaakov Avinu came, and Yosef HaTzadik came and he hinted to Yaakov, you have to believe me. Why do I have to believe you? It doesn't make sense to believe you. You didn't write me a letter. Answer, you know why? I'm not allowed to say why. And I'm not allowed to tell you why. So I didn't write you a letter. Purposely, I didn't write you a letter. In order not to be malbim penei chavero. So therefore, right, comes Yaakov and he says, look how many tzarot happened to him, and he's still a tzaddik. How does Yaakov know that he's still a tzaddik? He says he knows he's still a tzaddik because he didn't embarrass someone. And the fact that he didn't embarrass them and write me a letter, that's a proof that he's still a very, very big tzaddik. Okay, that's what he's saying until now. So now we have the Ramban. The Ramban, though, so the Orach Chaim HaKadosh was in this week's Parashat Vayigash, but the Ramban is in Parashat Miketz. When Yosef HaTzadik says, Vayiskor Yosef et hachalomot asher chalam lahem, vayomer alehem meragelim atem, lirot et ervat haaretz batem, there the Ramban comes and he says, right? ויזכור יוסף את החלומות אשר חלם להם, וידע שנתקיימו, שיסתחוו לו, they already bowed down to him. Just that's Lashon Rashi. But he comes and he says, so 1 second. All the brothers came bowing down, and then what happens is that he already knew that everyone else had to also come down, because Yaakov also had to bow down. And therefore he had to make a tachbula, first of all, that they should bring down Binyamin, to be Mekayem, the first dream. Meaning, right? In order to be Mekayem, the first dream of the Alumot bowing down, those were all the brothers. And then the Shemesh Yerech was a second dream. So that was going to be with Yaakov. But the first dream, you needed Binyamin as well. So he comes and he says, and therefore, right? And to do right away, he didn't want to do that. Why? Because he has to be Mekayem the Chalom HaSheni. אבל את הכל עשה יפה בעיתו לקיים החלומות. כי ידע שהתקיימו באמת. Meaning Yosef HaTzadik did everything perfectly in such a way in order that he has to fulfill the dreams. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh answered, he didn't want to embarrass the brother. So he kept quiet. And if he was going to write a michtav, he didn't, okay. The Ramban, Nachmanides, the Rishon, he comes and he says, no, he wanted that the dream should play into place. So it says, וכן אני אומר שכל ימים היו בנוסף, right, ביוסף בחוכמתו ביצירון החלומות, איך לא שלח כתב אחד לאביו, להודיעו ולנחמו. So he asks the question. This question is asked by the Ramban. The Ramban also asks, how could it be that he didn't write a letter to his father and to tell him and to appease him? כי מצרים קרוב לחברון כשישה ימים. This is a 6-day difference, right, of distance. ואילו היה מהלך שנה, okay, so maybe, but he says, היה רואה כי ישתח, right, he says, I don't understand. וגם מביא, אי אפשר להיות בארצם, והיה מקווה ליותו שם במצרים, מילותו הצלחתו הגדולה, וכל שכן אחרי ששמע את החלום פרעה, שניבלר כי יבוא כולם, right, גם כן, והתקיימו כל חלומותיו. So therefore now he actually makes sense. Meaning the Ramban himself is asking the question, now he has the answer. So fine, now we're going to have the Gaon. The Gaon Mivinna comes and he says, in the Aderet Eliyahu, the Gra, he comes and he says, right, כוונתו חס ושלום לא לצד אדם וכל שכן לא לצד אביו ולחינם, אלא שידע שעל ידי כן יתקיימו החלומות כסדר, ולא רצה לעבור רצון השם יתברך. Meaning he wanted that the dreams were going to have to come out על הסדר. And in order to do that, he had to do that. מה שעשה לא עשה, אלא מרוב צדקותו שקיימו החלומות, שלא להחיש רצון גזירת עליון. That's also the Gaon. He didn't want that it should, if he's going to come now and start playing around, he's fooling around with something that he cannot do that. And that's actually the Shla Kadosh. The Shla Kadosh says, קשה, יוסף הצדיק האהוב לאביו, איך לא הודיע לאביו שהוא חי, כדי שהוא יצטער? So it's also Shla. So he says, ואפילו אם היה רחוק ממנו מלצוב העולם, היה לו לא הודיע לאביו. Why not? The Haggah comes and he says, right, קושיה זו יש ליושב, כי יודע יוסף שחלומתו שחלם הם כמו נבואה, וידע שעל כל פנים יקיים שאביו ואחיו ישתחוו לו, וירא מאוד לנפשו אם ישתחוו לו בידיעה כי הוא יוסף, כי איך ישתחווה אב לבנו, והאחים הגדולים לאחים הקטן. על כן היה יושב ומצפה להיות זה הדבר מקוים בעודו מנקר לאיש מצרי, כי אז אין חרפה להם להשתחוו לשר מצרי. על כן לא התוודע לאחיו, אחר שהשתחוו לו בפעם ראשון. Do you understand what he's saying? the Haggah on the Shla Kadosh is actually saying something, an incredible yisod. He's saying like the Ramban and like the Gaon that you wanted that there should be a concept that the dream should come through, but he's mixing up the Or HaChaim HaKadosh with it as well. He's saying, right now they're dreams. But if I'm going to tell everybody, listen, by the way, you guys should know, I'm Yosef, start bowing. They're going to feel terrible. They're going to feel humiliated. This is their younger brother, and we have to bow down to him. So what did he do? He didn't want them to feel bad. So what? They come and they bow down to the master of the country. So they come, they bow down. You think they feel bad? They don't care. This guy is some goy gamur. They don't even know who the guy is. Okay, they bow down. He's going to now bring down Binyamin. He was also going to bring down. He wanted to do everything in a way that everybody should bow down and they won't even feel bad. He wanted to minimize the way of the concept that they're going to feel bad. And therefore, you're making like people a marriage between the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, right? Or HaChaim HaKadosh and the Ramban. Rav Simcha Zisel Broida, in his Sefer Sham Darech, he comes and he says like this, the Chalomot Shechalam Yosef, they were like Mar'eh Nevuah. So he comes and he says that this was actually from a Nevuah. He says, Al Yidei Mar'eh Nevuah Zod Notzeret Metziut Bebriah. And because of the Nevuah, it actually makes a Metziut. So he comes and he says that it was actually supposed to bring out the Nevuah. He comes and he asks the question, by the way. He says, Yesh litmoa ech, right, achar she'amad Yosef b'mitzvah yamim rabim, ech lo shalach ktav echad le'aviv, le'odiel nachamo. So he comes and he brings, right, he comes and he brings down the Ramban, right, that he asks the question, and he says, Yitkaimu kol chalamotav. And therefore he comes and he says, so it's like a Navi, that he understood the Nevuah, and therefore he had to fulfill the Nevuah, and therefore that's why he didn't do it. So he also brings down the entire thing as well. Now we're going to come and we're going to bring down, right, the Kiddushat Levi. Levi Yitzchak. So Rav Levi Yitzchak Mibarditchev, he comes and he says, Yosef HaTzadik didn't want to say that he was alive, because he knew that his Chalomot were going to be, right, fulfilled, and therefore he didn't want to take away the Ogmat Nefesh that he won. What does that mean? Sometimes it happens that I come and I tell you something. And then afterwards, I'm correct. What happens? I come and say, I told you so.
Dream come true.
Yeah, the dream come true. What happens? You can't say, I was right. You see, I told you. Yosef didn't want that. Yosef didn't want that the brothers, so this is also like the Haggah on the Shla Kadosh, very, very similar. Listen to the Kiddushat Levi. He says, V'yitnaker alehem. ונראה את הכתוב הזה בזה צדקת יוסף הצדיק. So he comes and he says, why? He comes and he says, אין רע כל כך. והנה, he comes and he says like this. He says, he didn't want that they should feel that he want them. והנה בכאן יוסף ניצח את אחד בקיום החלומות. But they had it. So therefore he comes and he says, ויתנכר עליהם, שלא יהיה להם עוגמת נפש וצער על שהוא ניצח אותם. ואפשר לומר שזה היה הכוונה יוסף הזה שלא הודיע לאביו שהוא מלך. He didn't want to tell his father that he's king. Right? He says, why? ואילו היה מודיע לאביו, היו באים אחיו והשתחוו לו, אין להם צער מזה. Imagine right now, from the beginning, they come down, he comes and he tells everybody, by the way, you should know, I'm Yosef, go tell your father to come down with everybody. They all have to come down, they have to start bowing down to him. You know what a bad feeling they're going to feel. They're going to feel, now he's also the king and we're wrong and he's right. That was too much for him. So he purposely did that. That's what also says over here, the Shla Kadosh, he says, do you know that even also even the Yaakov needed a tikkun, because he says he had ktsat chet of kibud avayim that he didn't fulfill for the 22 years, right? So therefore he comes and he says, right, v'ine kol etzem zera aviv haya b'shvil Yaakov, as it says, ki b'Yitzchak yikare lecha zara, b'Yitzchak velo kol Yitzchak. It's coming to l'mayet Esav. So he comes and he says, ulein haroim haya l'hepech. כי ידוע עשיו, he was נהג מאוד בכבוד אביו. So therefore he comes and he says, so it's משמע the exact opposite. So he comes and he says, על כן הוא צריך לסבול תער מזרעו זרע נאמן מחשבת טיפה ראשונה של יוסף הצדיק, התאבל עליו כ"ב שנה. He had to do אבלות for 22 years. הוא היה במצרים במקום ערוות הארץ לכפר כי ביצחק יקרא לך זרע. וזהו העניין של כ"ב שנה של הודיע יוסף שהוא חי, כי יד השם הייתה זאת. הוא אחד משני דרכים, או רוח הקודש שרה על יוסף, וציווה שלא להודיע על אביו, הוא צריך לקיים את ציווי המקום, כי הוא ואביו חייבים בכבודו ביתברך, או היה בהכרח שלקח הקדוש ברוך הוא בחירה מיוסף, שלא יבחר בדבר זה. והם בזה אשם ליוסף, כי היה מוכרח מהשם יתברך. So basically, the Shlach Kadosh comes and he said something incredible. Right? Not like what you said beforehand. Really, באמת, either Yosef HaTzadik understood with the Ruach HaKodesh, I'm not supposed to send them a letter. And even though it kills me, I have to accept the will of Hashem. Now, why? Yaakov needed a tikkun. What was the tikkun of Yaakov? If it says Ki b'Yitzchak yikareh lechazara, the main concept of Yitzchak, right? It's Ki b'Yitzchak is for Yaakov. Yaakov didn't do Kibud Avim for 22 years. And we know that Esav did do the Kibud Avim, the maximum amount of time. So what's going on? So he comes and he says, so then what happened was that he needed a tikkun, that he was going to suffer, that his true child, which was Yosef HaTzadik, that's what his machshava rishona, right? And that's why Yosef got Pishnayim. You remember that's a famous Orach Chaim HaKadosh. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh asks, why is it that he says Reuven is Bechor Yata, but Yosef took Pishnayim? And the reason why is because he says Kochi v'Reshit Oni. Really, by Met, you're right. It was Kochi v'Reshit Oni, physical, but the mental, the spiritual one was in Yosef, because he thought Yosef was the Tipa Rishona that came out. Physically, it was Leah, but he thought it was Rachel. So really, by Met, Yosef was the Bechor, but the physical Bechor was Reuven. And therefore, Yosef was the one that got the double portion, right, later on. So what happens now is he comes and he says, so because of that, he was punished at 22 years. His own son did not get, he was not with him for 22 years. Now, number one, either Ruach HaKodesh, he wasn't able to tell him, so you have to accept it, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away the Bechira. Meaning, you're going to ask Yosef after 22 years, why did you write your father a letter? So he said, I don't know.
He doesn't know.
I don't know.
That's
I have
not
no
it.
idea. Yeah, I don't know. Why?
So Hashem won it, and that's it.
Exactly.
Sipur is
100%. Now he comes and he brings down Yosef HaTzadik lo הודיע ליעקב אבינו שהוא חי בגלל החרם והשבועה לא לספר על המכירה. Another answer.
Yeah.
He says, you know why? It was a cherem. There was a cherem made, and he was part of the cherem. Dat זקנים מבעלי התוספות. וירא יעקב כי ישב במצרים. Remember, dat זקנים מבעלי התוספות, these are בעלי התוספות, ראשונים. Right? Until now, we did learn the Rishonim. We learned the Ramban, and we learned also the, how do you call this? We learned also the, now that's the Kim Bala Tosafot, but then we learned the Acharonim also as well. We had the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, we had the Gaon Medina, we had the Shlach Kadosh, right? We had the Acharonim also. But now, which one?
הרמב"ם הסכים מהרמב"ן פה.
Who's the Rambam in Ramban?
מה אמר שבתחילת אמרת זה הרמב"ם, בדעה הוא הסכים עם הרמב"ם.
No, this is Ramban, Nachmanides.
אז רמב"ן
There's no Rambam in. Right?
הסכים רמב"ם.
So one thing. So here we're talking about now, that's the Kim Bala Tosafot, which are the Rishonim. So he comes and he says, yes, listen, yeah? זהו שאמר הכתוב, אוזן שומע ועין רואה השם עשה, גם שניהם. מה רע לומר כן? What does that mean? כל גוף לא עשה הקדוש ברוך הוא, אלא כל העברים עתידים ליתן דין וחשבון חוץ מעין ואוזן. He says, do you know that all the membranes, all the organs of the human being are going to be taken justice, except for the ayin ozen. ולמה? העין רואה שלא בטובתו וכן האוזן. But the eye and the ears are the only things which are taken, which are not like the other איברים. ואמר רבי, וירא יעקב, בואו ראה יעקב אדם זקן ויושב בביתו, ורואה מה שיש במצרים, ועשרת בניו יוצאים ונכנסים ואין רואים. Yaakov comes and he sees that there's something in Mitzrayim, and the brothers are not saying. Why? He sees with his eyes that people cannot see. He says, "Af al pichen sheYaakov v'nav neviim היו קודם לכן. ויוסף לא היה רחוק מהם כי אם מהלך 4-5 ימים, ולא היו יודעים היכן הוא. וגם יוסף למה לא הודיע לאביו שוב במצרים." So the dad that came Balatazot also asked the same question. Why didn't he tell his father? אלא שהטילו חרם ביניהם. The brothers made a חרם between them. וגם שיתפו לקדוש ברוך הוא, וליוסף נמי השביעו, שלא לגלות. They made Yosef swear, also not to reveal. And therefore he says, והכתוב מוכיח, תכתיב, והוציאו כל איש מעלי, שלא לרצה לגלות לזרים מפני השבועה. And therefore, because of that, he wasn't able to say anything.
Who said that he also was in the...
That's what that's the King Balei Tosfot says. ויש שאומרים, and some people say, כי כשהיה עבד לא רצה להגיד לו, כי יותר לא היה מצערו, כן כשהיה בבית הסוהר, וגם כשהיה מלך לא יאמין לו, right? כי אפילו ליוסף, כשציוו לו אחיו לא האמין. כתיב ויפו ליבו כי לא האמין להם. ועוד, אם לא היה מגיל לאביו, היה ירא, שמא ישמעו אחיו, יבינו ויברח זה לצפון וזה לדרום. מרוב פחד שיראו, ונמצא אביו מצטער עליהם, וגורם צער גדול לאביו. ולכן המתין עד שבאו אחיו אצלו, ונתגלה להם תחילה, ופיישם בדבריהם שהם בלבו עליהם, ואומר להם לבשר לאביהם. Two different answers. Answer number one of that, the Kenim Bala Tosafot, they were all part of the Cherem. If they're part of the Cherem, you can't reveal it. So he couldn't tell anything to his father. He can't say anything. Answer number two, what's he going to do? When he was in jail, he's going to tell his father. When he was in an Eved, he's going to tell his father. When he was in the house of Potiphar, he's going to tell his father. When he was an Eved, obviously when he was in jail, no. So when he became king, his father's not going to believe him. If the brothers didn't believe him, they were right there. He's not going to believe him. So what did he have to do? He had to make sure that they're all there. And if he's going to come and he's going to reveal it, they're all going to run away because they're going to be afraid. And that's even going to be more sad for the father. So what did he do? He comes, he brings everybody together. He starts telling them, he starts appeasing them. And now he says, go to our father and go tell him. That's the second answer. Go to our father and go tell him. That was the second answer. Right? Another one, this is called the Igra de Kala of Tzvi Elimelech Shapira. He comes and he says, Arav HaKadosh Baruch Chaim HaKadosh, ביקש למצוא טעם יוסף, שהניח את דוד בצערו כל כך שנים. Why? Right? So he says, ונראה לי הקטן, שהחרם שעשו בצירוף השכינה, זה מדרש תנחומה, פרשת וישב, היה בפני יוסף, בהיותו עדיין עמהם, ולא היה רשאי לגלות עד עת שיתירו הם החרם. וגם בבוא אחיו היה מתיירא, פן לא ירצו להתיר החרם, כן גלגל עמהם כמה גלגולים, עד שהבין שכבר מרוצים יהיו להתיר. So basically he went, and then that's when he was, so basically you actually come and see that he was part of the cherem. He was part of the cherem. The Sefer of Kol HaKatuv L'Chaim again, of Moshe Schwartz, he comes and he says, בפירוש הריבה והראש, שניהם מתנבאים בסגנון אחד, שיוסף לא סיפר להביא בני החרם שהחרימו. So it's also a riva and also the rosh. Remember that there's pirush harosh at the back of the Hamaor. You have the pirush harosh of la Torah. So it's also the pirush harosh, and it's also the riva, and it's also brought down of Yismach Moshe. The Chengda v'Sefer HaKadosh, Igra de Kala, the same thing. That he says he was afraid also that he didn't want them to reveal the cherem. Uvdat Rabbeinu shelo tiretz ken yesh lomar desvir lei kemo sheorer b'Yismach Moshe sham שהחרם שלו ליעקב היה כנשבע לבטל את המצווה דכיבודיו. כיוון שלידי זה נצטער ונתאבל יעקב הרבה וקם על השבועה לבטל את המצווה הנחלה ולא יוסף שום איסור לגלות. He wants to basically come and he wants to say that there's an exception. That why don't we like this answer? Why don't we come and just say this is a beautiful answer? He says, you know why? Very simple. Are you allowed to make a shavua that you're not going to be mekayim mitzvah? You cannot. You're already mushba ve'omed. You have to fulfill all the mitzvot, and therefore, if you're not going to fulfill the mitzvot, it doesn't help that you're going to make a shavua. So even if Yosef made a shavua not to reveal, he cannot be part of the cherem. Because by him coming and accepting upon himself the shavua, he's being mevatel kibud avayim. Right? And we already said there was even mekuv ba'aseh in the fact that he is actually proactively doing it. So because of that, it doesn't actually help. And that's also brought down over here. The Igra de Kala says, Shvatim itiru et cherem, as brought down in the Shuta Rivash. Right? When they found him alive and everything, they were actually matir et cherem. Okay? Fine. Another answer. Did Yaakov Avinu ever know about Mechidat Yosef? Yeah, that's a question. Did Yaakov Avinu ever find out about Mechidat Yosef or not? So he says over here like this, בדברי חז"ל וכן בפירוש הרמב"ן ובעלי התוספות מבואר כי יעקב אבינו לא ידע על מכירת יוסף. בדאור החיים הקדוש, רוח אחרת עמו. What's רוח אחרת עמו mean? He holds like this. Why? The Psikta Rabati. The Psikta Rabati says, yeah, ויש אומרים, that משגיחים הושיב יוסף בפלטרין, כיוון שהרגיש ביעקב שחולה, ועבדו ליוסף, והרי כל שבחו של יוסף שבהפליג כבוד אביו, ולא נכנס אצלו בכל שעה. שאילולא שבאו אחרים ויאמרו לו אביו חולה, לא היה יודע, אלא להודיעך צדקו שלא רצה להתייחד עם אביו, שלא יאמר לו איך עשו בך אחיך ומקללם. Meaning that what would have happened is that Yaakov Avinu, if he was alone with Yosef, he would have actually asked Yosef, tell me something. What did your brothers do? How did you get down here? What happened? What's going on? אמר יוסף, אני יודע צדקו של אבא, כל דבריו גזירות הן. אמר ללבן, אמא שתצא לך, ומתה אמי, ואני בא לומר שקלם יקלם, ונמצאתי מחריב בכל העולם. I didn't want to do that. So the Daz Kenim Bala Tosfot says, ויהיה אחרי דברים, ויאמר ליוסף, הנה אביך חולה. He comes and he says, ויאמר ליוסף, אמרו ז"ל, זה אפרים. And he says here, ואומר הרב משה זכר לדבר, כי אותיות ויאמר, כי אותיות אפרים. מתחלף וו בפי, דוו מתחלפת בפי באלפבית דאטבש. Right? When you come and you have the atbash, you have you have the pei and the vav switching. ומשמע שלא יוסף רגיל אצל יעקב כמו שמצינו, נמי ויקרא לבנו ליוסף. ושמעתי מפי הרב שמואל הטעם, לפי שיהיה שאישה לו העניין, עד ריגוד דם מצרים. ויקלם יעקב ונמצא מחביא כל העולם כולו, שהרי רחל אמו מתה בגלל הקללה. So because of that, you have also that זקנים בעל התוספות. So says the רמב"ן, וידברו אליו וכל דברי יוסף, אשר דיבר עליהם וירא את הגלות אשר שלח יוסף לשאת אותו ותחי רוח יעקב עליהם. says שלא הוגד ליעקב כל ימיו, כי אחיו מכרו את יוסף. says the Ramban, he never knew. He never knew. The Ramban holds that באמת Yaakov Avinu never found out that they sold him. How did he get down there? They got lost, whatever it was.
Really, and you think he never really bothered or nothing?
He never found out. אבל חשב, כי היה טועה בשדה, והמוצאים אותו לקחו ומכרו אותו אל מצרים. He thought that he got lost, and the ones that found him sold him to the מצרים. כי אחיו לא רצו להגיד לו חטאתם, right? Because they didn't want to say it. Right? It was basically kidnapping. אף כי יראו לנפשם פן יקצוף ויקלל כאשר יצא בראובן ושמעון ולוי. יוסף לא רצה להגיד לו במוסר הטוב. That's why it says, ויצוו אל יוסף לאמור אביך ציווה לפני מותו לאמור. אפילו ידע יעקב בעניין זה, ראוי להם שיחלו פני אביהם ממותו לצוות יוסף מפיו. So he comes, that's the Ramban. The Ramban says, he never knew. But the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he says, ואתם, ואתה לא אתם שלחתם אותי, לשים ליבם חשש השנאה. ואולי כי בזה היה להם פנים לעמוד לפני אביהם כשנגלה הדבר, כי הם הגורמים לו, אבל ובכי 22 שנה, ועשו מעשה מופלא בברית במחר אחיהם. וראני שגם בוש לא יבושו מאביהם, והיה נראה לומר כי יעקב לא ידע גוף המעשה, וזה דרך רחוק. So the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh comes and he says, he didn't know גוף המעשה. He didn't know the entire thing, everything that happened. It was כי פשיטה שלא יימנע מחקור זאת איך נתגלגלו הדברים של מצרים, וגם מעשה קטון הפסים, right? What, he wasn't going to start asking? Right? He was going to start asking, one second, but how did the Keton Pasim have blood? How did, like, he would have started asking. So he says, אלא ודאי כי בטענת לא אתם שלחתם אותי, שאמר יוסף, הוכר הדבר כי מת השם את הזאת, ואין לערער אחר מידותיו. והוא אומרם, ראוי היה יעקב לרד בשלשלות של ברזל. So therefore, comes Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh, he says, the second that he comes and he tells the brothers, you guys didn't send me down. It was a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So now we don't ask questions anymore. No questions. And therefore he comes and he says, right? You didn't have the questions. So Yaakov Avinu comes and he didn't know about it. כי אבות לא דיברו יותר ממה שכתוב בתורה. The Imre Pinchas says, how is it that he didn't know? So he says, more than what was written in the Torah, they didn't speak. That's it. Meaning you think that, Kilu, the Torah only writes down, the Torah wrote exactly what they said. There's nothing else was written. And that's what it says. אלה הדברים. אשר דיבר משה כל ישראל בעבר הירדן במדבר בערבה. says כי משה רבנו עליו השלום. אלה הדברים אשר דיבר כל ימיו מעצמו. לבד הדברים אשר צווה מהשם לדברם. הלמדת אשר קיים ודיברת בם ודבריו אלו. Right? כל רואה יעיל כי כולם דברי תורה וחוכמה ומוסר. That's the only thing that they spoke. They only spoke Divrei Torah. They didn't speak about anything else. So it comes out, and now it actually comes out very, very beautiful. So if we're going to come and we're going to actually make a very, very quick sikum, right? We're going to make a very quick summary. Right? Now I'm going to make a summary. Yeah? Yeah? He comes and he says, right? He comes and he says like this. What exactly is the summary? So he comes and he says like this. Number one, Madua lo dia Yaakov Avinu. We just said Yaakov had eyes and they didn't have eyes. Yeah? He comes and he says, why is it that Yaakov Avinu, why didn't he tell Yaakov Avinu? One second. Why didn't he tell Yaakov Avinu that he's still alive? So Rabotenu Arishonim, we already brought down that he comes and he says that the reason why he didn't say it was he was very, very careful in the kavod of his brothers. And we brought proofs to that. He didn't want to embarrass the brothers. Now we asked Tzechim Yunazeh, because we said, listen, you want to throw yourself into the fiery furnace, you could do that. You can't embarrass your father, you can't hurt your father. But the second answer is that in order that the Chalamot should be mitkayem, that was the Ramban. So we went and we said, and that's why he actually did this. And therefore he tried to make sure that they would, not only that, he even tried to make even more sure, right, that there was going to be even less Ogma Nefesh. Now, right? Then the Sefer Tzaddik also didn't tell him because it was Yad Hashem, that was the Shlach Kadosh. It was Yad Hashem, whether it was that he had Ruach HaKodesh or that Hashem took away the Bechira. Another one, Yosef HaTzadik didn't tell the father, is because of the Cherem and the Shavua not to say this. Now, we already asked, but he's not allowed to accept the Cherem or the Shavua. And then, so therefore you had 5 different answers, right, of what happened exactly. Now you come and you say Hamsa. Yeah, now he comes and he says, did Yaakov Avinu actually know about it or not? The Ramban Ba'alei Tosfot says, no. The Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh is mashma that it could be yes, right? Because he just said that at the end of the day, right, it could be that at the end of the day, how do we know that it could be? Because he says, the second that he said, that's it, it came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's nothing else we could do. And therefore, the last thing that he comes and he says is, whatever is written in the Torah, that's exactly what they spoke. They didn't speak anything else. Have a wonderful night.